Welcome to First Geek Congregation. Well, today is going to be a little different than normal. Today is kind of a review, a look back at what we've done so far in 2014, and what we'll hopefully be doing in 2015. And something else really weird. I'm all alone in the room. Seriously, there's nobody else here besides just me. It's that time of year. Everybody's spending their time with friends and family. Two of our regulars, Liz and Marshall, who usually starts and stops the camera and everything for me, are out sick. So it's just you and me right now. So you got my full attention today. But it also means it won't be the usual chatter and dialogue that we have, which is part of what the plan was for First Geek Congregation. See, this has just started this year. And I think our first one was somewhere in should have been beginning of June, end of March, or end of May. And we've been in the same place the whole time. If you don't know, we're in the Center of Wichita. Center of Wichita is 800 North Market. And what it is the LGBT gathering place. They've got meeting rooms, and I say that and it sounds like that's the only thing they do. Well, obviously, we're not an LGBT church. We're an equality church. We don't care what somebody's sexual orientation or gender, or even truthfully, I don't care what somebody believes. If they want to walk in here and they want to talk religion or they want to talk theology, be it Christianity. In fact, actually part of the plan originally, and we haven't done it yet, was to have people of different faiths come in and talk. And actually, we did. And I'll get into that in just a minute. Part of the reason why I always make sure to plug this place. One, it's a cool place. It really is. They've done a great job on restoring it, on turning this into a space for people. There's 4 different rooms here. We're in the what you might call medium-sized conference room. And the next room over that we plan on moving into, and I'm going to get into that again in a minute, is a much larger area. It's very nice with projector and all that good stuff. It's great. But part of what they do here is something called Get Connected. Get Connected is for LGBT teens that are looking for a place to be that's safe, with people that are knowledgeable and understanding. And that's part of what they do here. And that's the big part that I really support, because let's face it, being a teenager is hard. It's not a simple thing. Everybody has had and I'm sure there's some people who went, oh, being a teenager was great, and I never once got picked on. I never once got looked down upon by my peers. I don't know who you are, but congratulations on being the exception to the rule, because almost everybody else has been picked on. They've been looked down upon. It's that time. And so, yeah, they're a fantastic thing. Give me just a second here. The other thing about First Geek Congregation is that we are a social media enabled group, along with doing these videos as live events and then available later to watch on YouTube. In fact, what just happened, people can message in on Twitter to First Geek Cong, or they can catch us on Facebook at facebook.com/First Geek Congregation. Our Google Plus account at Google Plus / or plus.google.com/First Geek Congregation. Wow, that's hard to get through. As a matter of fact, that was one person just apologizing, sending a message to apologize. Hi, I'm sorry, I really couldn't be there today. I've got a family thing going on. And it's that time of year, and I don't mind. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I thought it was a great time to do this kind of review. For anybody who ever sees this for the first time, in fact, we're probably going to make this the channel video. This gives you an idea who we are, because we're not your standard church. In fact, we're not a church. We're a congregation. It means a gathering. Some people don't make a lot of differentiation between the two. I do. And the problem I've got is, start off with when I say church, that brings to mind a set of thoughts a lot of people that aren't necessarily true here. There's not a lot of prayer here. There's not a lot of that. There's also not a lot of formality. People generally yell things out. They comment as we go along. In fact, the original plan for this was that it was a little more structured thing, where I get up and I talk for a little bit, and then it breaks off into being a discussion group. Well, the thing is it actually worked better if I'm going along and somebody has a question, they just ask. And so there's times where my back's to the camera, pulling up data and writing it on the board. And it's part of the reason why I hesitate on getting to the next room. See, the next room is really cool. The next room has a projector. It's actually bigger. It sets at least 50 people, I think. But the problem is I have to pre-plan so much more, and I can't just sketch things on the board anymore. Now I got to go through PowerPoint, and I haven't gotten my text set up for this. I haven't gotten all of these things wired up the way they should on my side. They've got all that stuff set up in there. I need to spend some time one of these days getting my stuff set up. And I'll be honest, we're running this off of a cheap Asus laptop, and which works just great. Don't get me wrong. But for video production and all that, I would really rather have a nice Mac sitting here and all this good stuff. But it's not going to happen for a while. So I need to learn to work with this a little better. And that's part of the reason we haven't gotten to the other room. The second thing is there's a little bit of fear here. See, we're a really small group, and we gotta have fun. We have fun with it. We're very laid back. We get to say just about anything we want. As a matter of fact, possibly a little too laid back. See, I do curse, and I even curse on camera. Last week, I did one of those things I don't find to be acceptable for myself, which is I F-bombed on camera. Oops. Sorry. For anybody who's listening and happened to be offended, sorry. But if you're listening and you happen to be offended, wow, I'm surprised you were listening to us in the first place. So let's talk about the topics and things that we've hit. Now, not everything that we've done has been put on YouTube. As a matter of fact, we started out with a slightly different layout in this room, and we didn't have a camera. We didn't have all that good stuff. In fact, we've changed tech once already through the process, moving from one webcam to a better webcam. This is a nice HD webcam that is 1080, and the first one we had didn't. It was actually pretty fuzzy and pretty crude and pretty ugly, but it worked. We also had to have a separate camera for it, or separate audio feed for it, and all this good stuff. It was horrible. It was horrible. And I'm glad that we got away from that. This is so much better. And it was also sitting right on the table. Well, now I'm using a tripod from Goodwill. $1.99 gets you a long ways at Goodwill. So yeah, we've managed to improve over the process over time, and we're going to continue to do that. And like I said, we are going to get into the next room eventually. It costs us a little bit more, but in the process, we gain a lot more. Right now, we don't have a whole lot of room here. If you packed everybody in here, if we had 10, 12 people, man, we'd almost be tripping over ourselves. Beyond that, you'd actually be seeing people sitting right here looking the wrong direction because there's a big conference table here. Over in that other room, we can get as big as we want. But the problem, the fear that I have is that if we get too large, we're going to start losing that discussion, that informality, which is a bit of a problem. We've done well with this so far. I didn't grab my cell phone. Hang on just a second. It should be said, a lot of the time I'm not horribly aware of the camera. I've been on TV before. I actually owned a TV show at one time and was producer for it, and one of the talent on video games. So I quit being aware of the camera quite a bit. Today is weird because I'm looking directly at the camera the whole time. So you have to forgive me if I suddenly get uptight. or weird, because yeah, this is strange and different. It's been a while. So let's talk about the things we actually talked about over the year. When we let off originally, I was a little scared about being too controversial, and I don't know what happened. It was actually me partially being fed up with a lot of inequalities that I was seeing. See, I've got friends that are, well, I've got friends that are gay. We've got one congregant who doesn't get to appear here, but hasn't wanted, or doesn't get to appear, doesn't get to show up here in person, but does watch it remotely, who's trans. And I see these people looked down upon by society, particularly by Christians. And this drives me nuts. We're not supposed to look down on people. We're not supposed to judge. We have all these things we're not supposed to do. So rather than being tame, we came out of the gate swinging. The very first one, and it's hard to read. The first one was on Two-Spirit. Now, if you're not familiar with the term, and unfortunately, this is one I really want to have the guy come back someday and do this one all over again. But if you're not familiar with the term Two-Spirit, it is a different way of looking at sexuality and gender. I mean, some people would probably sound a little odd to them to hear those terms used separately. Sexuality and gender are not the same thing. Gender is the parts you're born with, or potentially the parts you later become. Sexuality being, are you attracted to men? Are you attracted to women? Are you attracted to both? What is it? In fact, actually, there's even more options than that. But Two-Spirit in particular is a Native American set of thought that there's more to it than just a binary setup. And actually, gender binary is a term that is used in the LGBT community, basically to indicate male or female. It's actually the most incorrect in a lot of ways. It does work with gender for the most part, but not necessarily in a way that's really explains it. There's some folks that will describe sexuality this way. Yeah, seriously, I cannot. The camera does not look like it's trying to pick up anything today. This is what happens when I don't have somebody running it. Basically, a spectrum between straight and gay. That's one way that a lot of people look at it nowadays. Two-Spirit actually gets a little more interesting in that different groups have different roles and ways that they do it. And I'm gonna give you this to you real quick. And trust me, this is a quick abbreviation. In fact, not only is this a quick abbreviation, this is incorrect, because it's going to imply this one statement being for all of the Two-Spirit movement. It's not. Don't take it as that. This is just one example. Trust me, we had Brent Kennedy, who was the president of Pride for 2 years and is also on the board for the Center of Wichita and is also part of Get Connected. and still actually active in Pride, up here talking about it, and he talked for a good hour. But anyways, this is an example of it, which is that some of them, instead of, we look at male and female very strictly. Men are this, women are this. Not only do we look at the idea of our parts, this is what men have, this is what women have, but also the roles in society become very, very set. Well, with the Two-Spirit movement, it gets a little more interesting. One example, like I said, just an example, is one group that looks at it from a much different way of thinking, and you could easily put it as male 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and female 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each one of these attributes let's say this one is a hunter. I'll just give two of them an example. One of them is your classic Indian hunter-gatherer. The other one would be your classic person who stays home and raises kids. Well, they didn't look at it as men go out and hunt. Some of the tribes looked at it as, for lack of a better term, male 1 goes out and hunts. Male 2, not second male in the group, male 2 as a distinct identifier differentiation will be the type of person who stays home and raises the kids. Female 1 could also be the hunter, while male 2 could be the person who stays home and raises the kids. In other words, there was a great deal more flexibility in how they looked at gender roles. You have to give me just a second. I got somebody messaging me. Yeah, we're still having focus problems. Okay, hang on a second. See if we can fix this real quick. See if I can convince the controller software to launch and actually do its thing. Wow, now we have completely lost focus. Hello. Well, this is unfortunate. what he's telling me is that we're having focus problems, which I can kind of see. I couldn't see how bad it was until now. Unfortunately, remember that part where I said it's a cheap laptop and I kind of wish I had a Mac? Yeah, it's the software that I would normally bring up to force it to stick to a very specific focus won't launch now, which means I have to reboot it. We can't reboot it because we're in the middle of a broadcast right now. So, yeah, so we're going to be just a little fuzzy, apparently, and that is unfortunate. Seriously, this is annoying. Try it one more time here. All right, well, I apologize, but it looks like we're going to be stuck this way. Sorry, guys. And that is unfortunate because, like I said, I was originally thinking this was going to end up being the channel header one. But, well, it is what it is. Anyways, so our first discussion was on basically gender and sexuality and how we think of it, us as Christians, us as, for lack of a better term, the majority of society, how we think of things like gender differently than it has been in other areas. But actually, I just go, wow. I guess for the most part, I'm just going to end up not writing on the board a whole lot because I don't know that everybody can see it. See, right now it looks like it wasn't focused, and it's just fading away. Dang it. You know, so I'm going to try one more. Nope. So we can do it. Yeah, you can focus on my hand just fine. Oh well. anyways, so we also brought in Michelle Drilling about 2 weeks later, who came in and talked about hunger awareness. She talked about food insecurity, basically the idea that some people, we think of hunger as one thing, but food insecurity is an interesting problem. Food insecurity isn't just being hungry, it's wondering where your next meal should come from. And Michelle Drilling is with the Wichita State University Hunger Awareness Project, which I know, I know a couple of people are involved in that. And one of them just went to go to one of the UN meetings on the topic in Washington, D.C. Very cool. But we also talked about us as believers. What is our requirement? What are we supposed to do with people who experience food insecurity, who are hungry, and all of these things? What are we supposed to do versus what we're letting society do right now? See, right now there's a big gulf of difference between the two, and this is one of those moments that I get branded a liberal church, is because I am for welfare. Because as a believer, I'm supposed to support those who are hungry. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's what we're supposed to do. But we've gotten into the belief that what's ours is ours, and those people just have to do without. They're going to have to figure out how to get their own. And we've gotten very bad about it. Very bad about it. We think that dropping a couple of nickels into the Salvation Army bucket is what Jesus had in mind. It's not. We had a couple of more, and I'll be honest, I don't remember what all of them were. See, because that gap of time between, actually, I may still have record of that. Give me just a second. I'll see if I can find it. No, okay. We talked about leadership. Basically, the idea, because there's an interesting problem. Am I qualified to lead a congregation? Well, I am a minister. But that really doesn't mean much. That's just a piece of paper. Do I know enough to lead people? I don't think so. To be quite honest, nobody does. Yeah, I know a lot of guys who know a lot about the Bible. That doesn't actually mean that they're qualified to lead people in the discussion, because unfortunately we don't do discussions, and that's why I like this place. It's not about me standing up here and telling everybody how it is. It's us discussing it. I may lead discussion, but in the end it ends up being about how we take it in and how much authority we give the people that are in leadership. We also talked a lot about the early church and how it dealt with it, and some inequalities that did occur even that far back. Fundamentals. What that one was? I had one that was called the fundamentals. I don't know if we actually did it. Unfortunately, we didn't put a date on this. And I said these things that we started back in March. Well, actually, the leadership one is actually back in April. There's a date on this, I just realized. So yeah, that's how far back it goes. Now, oddly enough, I actually had started planning some of this way before that even. Eventually, we got into the point that we were YouTubing this stuff. Now, this is where it gets a little more fun for me, because there's a better record. Because every week that we did one, there's YouTube entry for it. Actually, almost every week. We did have 2 weeks that we had camera problems, and we've had a couple of weeks where we haven't done it. It's just that simple. I mean, things going on. I can think of twice actually in a row where I had an event going on that the Great Plains Renaissance Festival, for instance, which I go to every year. I run a small piece called the Kansas Authors Pavilion. So when we started doing the actual videos, once again, we came out swinging with a really weird topic, which was the simulation argument. For those who've never heard the term the simulation argument before, the simulation argument basically boils down to this, that what we're in is actually, well, a simulation. It's a computer running us. Not running us necessarily, but a computer running the universe. Well, if that were true, how would that affect religion? I mean, how would that affect all these belief systems that exist? Well, the basic premise is, do you know there's a creator then? And you also know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that there's a creator, because somebody had to start a simulation. Somebody had to program it, somebody had to do these things. And on top of that, there is somebody who's in control of it. Now, whether or not they're looking at us at the level that Christianity views us as looking at us, that's a different story. And we would call that thing or that person God. Who knows? The simulation argument actually is very specific. The simulation argument is that not our ancestors, that's the word for it, that off the far-flung future, the descendants of the real us that existed at one time are running a simulation to learn about history, to learn about how we came to be the way we are, to replicate these situations under which our history evolved. Now, I don't buy the simulation argument, not that one specifically, but I don't necessarily disagree with the idea of the universe being a simulation, because the truth is it doesn't matter. It has no relevance whether or not we're running in a multi-dimensional universe that's real, a simulated universe. None of that really matters on a day-to-day basis. Well, it's an interesting intellectual discussion. In the end, it doesn't matter. We're still real. No matter whether we're running inside a computer or not, we're still real. That, by the way, was our most popular one so far on YouTube. What that was on? See, I said all these are on here. There's one of them that doesn't have a description. It just says First Geek Congregation Gathering. See what it is. We'll just both be surprised real quick. Let's see, what was it? Death. We discussed death. And the effects, and we discussed a lot of these things. We discuss more than just one way. So, well, this is a Christian organization. I hate using the term Christian in a lot of ways because it implies a set of things that aren't necessarily true. Christians have now become synonymous with intolerance, and become synonymous with trying to make the world just them. And the truth is, here it's a lot different than that. Here it's about all of us. And so a lot of times we don't discuss things just from strictly Christian perspective. I mean, obviously the simulation argument, we went through some science on it. Well, in death, we also talked a little bit about different religions and how they view death. Echo stewardship, which is a big thing for me. Actually, almost everything we talk about here is a big thing to me, because I get to pick. I get to pick which thing we're talking about. So from my perspective, they're almost always something important to me. Echo stewardship. Basically, we're supposed to take care of the place. God gave us something cool. We're supposed to take care of it. And the fact is, we don't really do a particularly good job of that. Yeah, here's another one that didn't put a description on it. Okay. I mentioned that we changed technology and things like that along the way, and also changed like having a tripod to work from. If you want to see a bad video of me, this one was one of them, which basically is shot from about right here up. I had the hugest stomach in that thing. Anyways, but we're talking about sin. The idea of sin is missing the mark. Got a set of rules, we miss the rules. But it's not necessarily a Bible thumping, you're burning in hell sort of discussion. As a matter of fact, actually, it was a lot more liberally looked at than that. Salvation. What is the next week's was salvation? What does it mean? What is the definition? How does it work? Especially because salvation is not a universal concept within Christianity. And somebody's going to say, well, wait, that's part of the deal. Well, it gets salvation through the death of Jesus Christ is part of the deal. However, under what conditions do we experience salvation? Under what conditions are our souls saved? That is a matter for huge debate. Because different people have different views on it, including the question of works versus salvation. We are saved through works. We're saved through salvation alone, or we are saved through works alone, or we're saved through both. Is part of the discussion that happens a lot of times. The next week's was science fiction, fantasy, and religion, and how they often mix like oil. Let's face it. Right now, some people will refer to it as an anti-intellectual movement, which basically boils down to if it's science, it's bad. That's a view among a lot of ultra-conservative Christians. I say a lot of. A vocal group would be more along the lines. But the problem is that vocal group sort of infects others over time. So they've started telling us that not only is science is wrong, leave it in God's hands, all of these things. And there's a whole lot of things to be discussed there. Jody Simon. This is our only, we had a guest speaker by the name of Jody Simon. Jody Simon is cool. She's a friend of mine. She is, let's see if I can get this. I don't know that I put it on here. Yeah, I don't have her whole title on there. It's actually, there was a kind of a hilarious joke about it because I asked, hey, what's your title? That way I could put the title on here and I could announce her by way of her titles. Titles, plural. There was a whole bunch of them. And including women's studies and et cetera, et cetera. So we kind of had a little bit of fun there. But part of her thing was about worldview. If you want to stop and watch anything for First Geek Congregation, you get an idea what really is behind First Geek Congregation beyond just the idea of a group who gets together and discusses religion. Look at the worldview one. It's one of the most important ones in all of them that we've done because it gives you the idea that Jody Simon puts forth the idea of how we see the world, how it taints how the rest of society looks back at us at times. There's a lot of important stuff in that one. It's just, for the lack of a better term, there's a lot of important stuff in that one that I think everybody should have a moment to look at. Worldview is an important thing because we always view the rest of the world from where we're standing. We don't put ourselves in other people's shoes and look back. In fact, it's a very difficult process to do. And that one also had a couple of interactive exercises and things like that. Going back. Okay, that was Jody Simon. I'm really going to do a better job of this. Apparently, I'm doing a really, really bad job at putting the label for what it is on all of these. Let's see this one. I have no idea what it is. I didn't even put it in the description. Nice. Yeah, it just says come join us for peace, love, and respect. Yeah. Oops. Let's see what was that one's date? August 17th. I should go over here. Okay, that one should be addiction. Um, Anyways, we did one on addiction. Both from the idea of simple addictions like smoking, which is a socially acceptable addiction. Well, mostly socially acceptable. It's actually becoming less and less so. Gambling. All of these ideas that sometimes they're socially acceptable, sometimes they're not. And sometimes it's also conditional on certain things and certain groups, whether or not it's acceptable. Ah, yes. The one that I liked. Back on August 24th, we did enemies. We're told to love our enemies. So, who are our enemies? Who is it we're supposed to be loving? What does the Bible actually say about it? Because there actually is a schism of thought what we read. Because if you go through Old Testament, you have one way of treating enemies. And as you get into New Testament, we see a transition to a different sort of thinking. And some people, by the way, would be offended by what I'm saying, because some people look at the Bible as being consistent all the way throughout. And there's no other way to say it. It's not consistent all the way throughout. We're not supposed to treat everybody else by stoning them. We've got a set of rules that prevent that appear in the New Testament. We also have letters from Paul that prevent that from happening in the New Testament. So we have a habit of trying to make the Bible a consistent thing. That if you pick up and you start at Genesis and you read all the way through, nothing ever actually changes. That's not true. And that's a heresy that, or at least many people view as a heresy, that I speak, because that also means that there's contradiction at times. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. In the beginning, another fun one. In fact, it was so fun, we actually had to do two different ones back to back, 2 weeks of it back to back, which in the beginning was a look at Genesis. But we also looked at other religions. How did they view creation? And how does this mesh up with what we know from science? And how did we view Genesis? Because the important part to take away from that conversation was that not everybody has always viewed it as being an absolute. See, a lot of it was viewed as being a very symbolic tale, not an absolute. Now, there's a lot of people who look at this is how it happened exactly. It took exactly 6 days to create and a seventh day to rest. And anybody who says otherwise is a heretic, or is just wrong. But the Bible didn't necessarily make it so. In fact, it was us as humans that made it that way. So we discussed that a lot. Divisions of Christianity is actually kind of kind of a form of insanity. Somebody had asked about some of the different differences between these different groups. So I ended up, by the time it was done, we had taken the entire whiteboard and we had done most of the major divisions of Christianity. Now keep in mind, there's something like, if I remember correctly from that discussion, there's something like 35,000 current active divisions of Christianity. Wow. That's wow. And by the time we were done, we had a board that covered everything from where Jesus started to where we are now, and at least hit the major highlights. And where did these guys split off at, and why did they split off? What was the major difference that caused these people to split? Because splits happen a lot in churches, and they still, to this day, are happening. Biblical feasts and holidays. Okay, that's what I would consider to be one of the most generic and most done ones, is particularly if you follow something like Messianic Judaism, where it's important to understand both the Old Testament holidays and the New Testament, actually post-New Testament holidays that come about. How do they all intertwine? How are they put together? Why did these happen? What's the history behind them? War and speaking out against quackery. Speaking out against quackery was a thing that happened. It was actually because I saw a poster from Faith Healing that claimed to heal cancer. If there's one thing history has taught us, is that most faith healers are frauds. I can't say that all faith healers are frauds because I haven't met all of them, nor has anybody ever checked all of them out. But let's face it, there's consistent history here that they're frauds, that they're trying to take your money and walk away. And so I had to speak out against it, which, of course, everybody in the room is kind of agreeing with me, too. History of Halloween. Okay, this is actually another one of those where there was so much, we ended up spread over 2 weeks, which is a history of Halloween and Christian symbols versus the bad guys and stories in pop culture, which actually the first week and the second week we kind of ended up breaking it up. The idea being, what is Halloween? Because we hear a lot of things about Halloween, and not all of them are true. In fact, actually, there's people who have essentially rallied themselves against Halloween. It's a problem because we're spending so much time being anti this, anti that. We forget to do the things we're supposed to do, but we also have grown to believe people so quickly that we don't check things out for ourselves. We don't check to see if there's any truth to what they're saying. We just buy it. And Halloween has become one of those. So we spent quite a bit of time talking about Halloween and what its origins were and all that good stuff. Now we're starting to catch up with ourselves here finally. Politics, particularly in Kansas, and religion. Politics, particularly in Kansas, and religion, and all that negativity. We had just got through with the elections here in Kansas, the midterm elections. And you want to talk about some serious mudslinging. In fact, actually, the worst part was serious mudslinging, and people like me, actually most of Wichita that I know, didn't even get the people we wanted. Most of us were voting Democrat. I'm a Republican personally, but almost everybody we have in Kansas who's a Republican right now, not good people. Not good people, not good ideas, and they don't support the things we should be supporting as believers. Despite the fact of being the group that talks like they're big believers. Video games and religion. Really, actually, I'll be honest. Oh, okay. Actually, part of it was a little bit more interesting. Video games and religion was a little more interesting than you might have thought. We also looked into some of the psychology of video games, the benefits of video games, because originally this whole thing came about from a couple of years ago when somebody had posted an article that said video games aren't anti-biblical, they're just stupid. Well, by that token, actually watching a movie was stupid, watching TV was stupid, reading books was stupid, anything was stupid. Because everything gives us some sort of advantage in life. The big thing is to avoid the addiction level. I used to be a World of Warcraft player who played, I'm not even going to say how many hours I played a day of World of Warcraft. But I did eventually quit because when I hit /played, which tells you how much cumulative time you played, I believe I was at 27 days, and I realized maybe it's time to give it up. Racism and religion was last week. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I skipped one. Which, by the way, this is apparently the least popular one we've ever done yet, which is Life Cataclysms and Cataclysms, not catechisms. That's a different thing. Cataclysms and storms, and how we probably should and shouldn't react to them. Yeah, I think one person is. Yeah, we got one view on that video. So apparently nobody was interested in that topic. And racism and religion was last week, which basically boiled down to, do the major world religions support? And when I say this, I mean this is the core tenets. Does the Bible, for instance, support racism? Does the Quran support racism? Does do these books, all these things, support racism? And there was actually some surprising answers. Now the thing was, it was important to note that is about the core materials. How we implement it in modern societies, that's a different story, because, well, in theory, we shouldn't have any racism these days. We do. In fact, in abundance, unfortunately, including in churches. And we talked a lot about that. It's an interesting topic to see where we've been and where we should be going, and maybe possibly what we need to do, which basically boils down to speaking out about it. That wraps up 2014, all the topics we've done for 2014. There are so many more I could have done this year. And in fact, there's a couple of weeks that we've got that we've missed. I was sick one time. All of these things that happen that, yeah, we've been, I guess apparently we've been running this since April. And what a ride. I mean, really, what a ride. How amazing is this that we've managed to survive this long? This is just paid for out of pocket. We do have a donation box. We do have a donation thing online. I don't think anybody's ever used it. So it's run on the cheap. The camera was paid for. The first camera that we had was paid for by me. The second camera was paid for by the congregation. The laptop was paid for by me, though it's actually my laptop for work. I just happen to repurpose it for this. Little things. We've gotten this far. We don't have a huge attendance. We don't have 1 million people watching. I'm all right with this. This is not what First Geek Congregation is about. First Geek Congregation is about a place where us who enjoy pop culture, see, for once today, I think this might be like one of twice I've not worn some geeky t-shirt. In fact, actually, while I was scrolling through the videos, I could see through the preview clips that apparently my favorite t-shirt to wear to First Geek Congregation is my Superman t-shirt. We're geeks. We think different. We view the world differently. We compartmentalize things. We understand that there is not necessarily a big gulf between science and religion. We do things differently. But we also are very quick to explore new ideas. We're very quick to look at how other people do things. And it's great. We combine that sort of thinking with religion. And if we had 500 people, if we had a congregation of 500 people, we couldn't do it anymore. It wouldn't happen. We would lose the magic. 6 or 8 people, 4 people, because most of the time we've got 4 people in the room. 5 people maybe. We've had, I think 12 was our max so far, packed into this little area. And actually it was laid out a little different, so we could actually pack more people in if we wanted to. But yeah, this next year we are going to grow it some. I keep saying that we're going to, and I keep hesitating because I really don't want to see us break the magic of this idea. Right now, people are watching online. I've got 2 viewers watching us right now. They're watching live, and then later on throughout the week or following weeks, we'll have more people check out the YouTube video of it. It's fantastic. it's exactly what I'd hoped for. An open-minded group that can discuss it without getting ticked off with each other. We don't, it's not that we all agree with each other. We don't necessarily agree with each other on every topic. It's that we can come in here and have a conversation from a point of view of peace, love, and respect. We respect everybody else around us. With respect, it's easier to have love, and with love, it's easier to have peace. We've succeeded with that so far. So what are we doing for 2015? Well, to start off with, I'm making good on my thing to, if you join us on Facebook, you're gonna see twice a day postings. The website's going to finally get updated to it actually matches what we're doing. The website was actually written before the very first gathering of First Geek Congregation. There was a theory of how it was going to operate. There was actually a layout for the order of service, which basically we had an opening prayer, and we had this, and we had that, and then there's the message, and then there's the discussion, and then the closing prayer. And you know what? We don't do any of that. We flip the switch on it, and we start talking to each other. This works better. This works a lot better. But the website needs to be updated to actually match all that stuff. And we need to start, I don't know, doing something with the Twitter account one of these days, because we hardly ever do. And yeah, as this and all of those little faults, by the way, fall on me because I'm the only guy doing it. I haven't even. It would be a great thing. But so we're going to start ramping that up a little bit. Yes, part of it's to get people in through the door, but hopefully, part of it's also just to get people reached, to have that moment of, they're right. When it comes to the idea that we should be treating each other as equals, that we should be seeking peace. And I don't necessarily mean seeking peace through Jesus. That's great, and I hope everybody makes that choice. But that's not what I push people towards. I don't push people towards anything. I've got friends that are atheists. I've got friends who follow Native American traditions. I have friends who follow Wicca and other pagan traditions. I have friends who are Christians who I don't agree with how they do Christianity, but I don't care. Each person has to walk their own path. What I care about, and what this is all about, is to try and bring peace, love, and respect to the world. Which are dangerous words. I mean, most of the people, a lot of the people who have tried to do peace, love, and respect, they do it on a grand scale, like Martin Luther King or some of those guys. They don't fare well. Peace, love, and respect, oddly enough, does not bring peace, love, and respect to the people who actually are the ones trying to teach it and trying to bring people to it. It is unfortunate. So, and this is going to be, it's going to be a great year. 2014 was an awesome year, so and I can't imagine the next year won't be awesome too. Yes, and for anybody who knows me, my life has had its own personal turmoils and its ups and downs, and projects that worked and projects that failed, video games I still haven't gotten released yet, all sorts of stuff. I've got a divorce that's happening. Yeah, that's part of life. We're told that we're going to hear war and rumors of war and earthquakes and natural disasters, but we're not to concern ourselves with it. Guess what? I try not to. I try to stay positive, to stay happy, to be able to give peace, love, and respect to others. I try my best. Don't get me wrong. I don't win on that all the time. I'm not perfect, but 2015, I'm hoping that we spend a lot more time, hopefully getting other people to see that peace, love, and respect in us, for them to start experiencing it too, for them to start looking at the rest of the world and going, I could complain about that guy being homosexual, or I could shut my mouth and not care. Because the second option is a little better. Or one step better, though, is Or I can look at that guy who's homosexual. I can go ahead and respect him as a human being and treat him as an equal. That's what we want to see. That gal over there that I think's dressed like a tramp, she still deserves respect. All of these people still deserve respect. And that's what I'm hoping in 2015, that we spend more time getting people to see that. So this is going to be the shortest First Geek Congregation video we've ever done. And I'm going to say, I was going to say the shortest gathering, but if it's only one person, it's not really a gathering. Well, I guess technically it's 3 people since we got people watching online. But yeah, this will be the shortest one we've done. And that's just fine with me, because sometimes make it as simple as possible, but no more simple. So I hope, if you're seeing this, hope to see you again in 2015. And I hope that you ring in the new year with peace, love, and respect. So have a good one.